to go into actually what it looks like to look at a promise first with the eyes of Joshua and Caleb compared to the other spies. Because sometimes we can look at a promise and we can say, oh, like I really want my marriage to be restored, or gosh, I really want a family and a husband, or I really, like I've been told this by the doctor, or I'm struggling with this thing that it has power over me, I don't have power over it, right? Or I need healing in my body. If we're looking at those promises that we are contending for, those things that God has given us or said that we have, but if we're looking at it with the eyes of the spies and not like Joshua and Caleb, there's going to be a difference, right? So I'm going to read in Numbers 13 and 14. This is the story of where they finally journeyed through the promised land, or finally found and journeyed to the promised land, walked right up to it, and they sent out spies. And they went and explored. This is verse 21. So they went up and explored the land of the wilderness. They went for 40 days. In verse 25, this is the scouting report. After exploring the land for 40 days, the men returned to Moses, Aaron, and the whole community of Israel. They reported to the whole community what they had seen and showed them the fruit that they had taken from the land. This was their report to Moses. We entered the land you sent to us to explore, and it was indeed a bountiful country, a land flowing with milk and honey. Here's the kind of fruit it produces. But the people living there are powerful, and their towns are large and fortified. We even saw giants there. It talks about some of the descendants and all the names that I can't pronounce. And verse 31, but the other men who had explored the land... verse 30, but Caleb tried to quiet the people as they stood before Moses. Let's go at once and take the land, he said. We can certainly conquer it. But the other men who had explored the land with him disagreed. We can't go up against them. They're stronger than we are. So they spread the bad report about the land among the Israelites. The land we traveled through and explored will devour anyone who goes to live there. All the people we saw were huge. We even saw giants. And then chapter 14, the whole community began to weep aloud. They cried all night. Their voices rose in a great chorus of protest against Moses and Aaron. If only we had died in Egypt, or even here in the wilderness, they complained. Why is the Lord taking us to this country only to have us die in battle? Verse 6. Two of the men who had explored the land, Joshua, son of Nun, and Caleb, son of Jephunneh, tore their clothing, and they said to all of the people in Israel, the land we traveled through and explored is a wonderful land. And if the Lord is pleased with us, he will bring us safely into the land and give it to us. It is a rich land flowing with milk and honey. Do not rebel against the Lord, and don't be afraid of the people in the land. They are only helpless prey to us. They have no protection, but the Lord is with us. Do not be afraid. And so then all of a sudden we know the famous verse in Joshua where it talks about be strong and courageous, for the Lord your God is with you. Right, but there's a difference in the perspective that we see in these verses and in these couple chapters of the spies who they saw the same land. They saw the same giants, they saw the same fruitfulness, they saw the same promise, but there was a different perspective, right? The spies saw with a perspective of that through their eyes that they're not enough, that they don't have what it takes, that their external circumstances, no matter what God has promised, that no matter what God has said, that it wasn't going to happen. Compared to Joshua and Caleb, when they talked about this, they saw the same land, the same huge bunch of grapes that they brought back, the same giants, the same fortified cities. but they saw through the perspective of what God had said. And they saw through the perspective of what God saw in them and what He had called them to. Is this making sense?
Yes.
So I think sometimes when we look at promises, so whether it's a new name and walking in victory, whether it's journeying through loss and overcoming grief and coming out with healing on the other side, whether it's walking through physical healing or a restored marriage or contending for a family or healing from addiction, all of this stuff matters, the perspective that we have. How many of you guys have maybe looked at a promise or your external circumstances and thought, oh, I don't know if that's for me? Anybody? Yeah. Me too. And I feel like it's in those moments where actually God gets to come crashing into our world. And He gets to say, no, let's look through my eyes, and this is what I say about the promise, and this is what I say about who you are.